the hope is that they enjoy them, that they reach for them and feel comfort, that they know the person who created them, so that I can remember when a number of years ago, an elderly woman came in the studio and she so wanted to purchase a small vase. So that was so beautiful. And she said, "It's so beautiful, I don't think I can ever use it." And I said to her, I said, "You know, if you don't use it and make it part of your everyday life, then when you pass away and all those earthly belongings have been left behind and you are now on a different pilgrim's walk, your grandchildren, when they come to collect the things that create the memories, when you served your grandchildren toast with strawberry jam on the Mickey Mouse plate you got at, plastic Mickey Mouse plate you got at Disneyland, or the little Tupperware cup with orange juice in it on Saturday morning for cartoons, you know, that had a little pattern on it. They're gonna fight like hell for that Mickey Mouse plate and that little Tupperware cup, because it was handed to them by you. So whether it's a cup or a plate or anything, it's the memory that's translated that then becomes generational. And we hold on to those so we can hold on to the memory of those who've gone before us. So I said, you need to use that every day. Put flowers in it, and then hand it to your favorite grandson or granddaughter and say, "This is my favorite vase." And they will put flowers in it for you to remember you. So in the sense of pattern and ritual, we've developed all over planet Earth religions of ritual that provide us with a ritual of practice. We do this, and we do this, and we do this, and somehow the practice gets us to this. And when does all the ritual patterns that became a structure, then thousands of years ago, people decided that these ritual structures that were set up for us, that we had to participate in this pattern, we as human beings need to have our own personal experiential experience with the soul. We need different practices because we're not the same human beings. Every human being has a pattern inside. So I've watched people come through here for 40 years, and I've watched them touch a piece, and put it down, and touch a piece, and put it down, and they're there for, time is irrelevant to them, and they find that piece that speaks to them. That's not me speaking, that's the clay speaking, okay? That's the firing speaking. Once someone finds that emotion into that structure, they've now moved out into the experiential. And they're going to set up their own pattern of living that interfaces with probably some sort of structure, but it's going to create a foundation of their own culture and their own identity. That's what the Industrial Revolution wants to take out of the human being. They don't want to have the individual pulling out of the structure and developing their own identity. And for a very simple cup or a plate or a bowl that has that type of impact, then that's a good mission. That's good work. I think that one of the things is that years and years ago, it started with when our own children were born, we started pressing their feet into the plates when they're babies. You know, a baby is fearless between 6 and 9 months. They'll do anything. You know, you can sit in there, squeeze their feet into the plates, and they think it's the greatest thing in the world. You know, 14 months, 15 months, they'll grab on to their mother, and you know, it's horrendously terrible. But there's this period of unforgiving trust, you know, just absolute trust, just fabulous. And they just have the wonderful, so we would press our children's feet in there and then give them the platters. But when I started doing it for my godchildren, and then for students that I knew who knew the studio very well, and pressing their feet into that, doing that for a number of people, then I made enough of them to go to the grandparents, to the parents, and to the little child. Mm-hmm. So I've got 5 generations that are going to be caring for my work. It'll be the only work that I'll probably be remembered for, is because it'll have the name of the child and its birth date and baptismal date or significant dates inlaid in porcelain. But when those grandparents, and I've been in homes where they're right above their beds, they're right above, you know, the most important part of the house are their grandchildren's. They don't know, they can't remember what the potter's name, they can't even pronounce his name, but man, those plates are so important. So when they die, it's going to go to their children. And when those children die, it's going to go to the little baby who's now in her 30s or 40s, and then she's going to be passing them on to her children, or his children. So one of the hopes is for all creative people is that their works last longer than their human mortality. So that's whether it was Mozart or John McCutcheon or John Prine or all these fabulous people who worked in clay. So I have one story for you. That'll be it then. When my teacher's father became National Living Treasure of Japan in 1976, the State Department sent John Pope. He was Director Emeritus of the Freer Gallery in Washington, D.C. And he came on behalf of the State Department to congratulate Nagasato Muon on becoming National Living Treasure of Japan. So we're in this formal ceremony, 500-600 people, and John Pope and I are the only foreigners in the room, besides some journalists. So he goes up there and he gives this speech in beautiful English with a translator, honoring the Nagasatos and for what they contributed and what they went through as a family to get to this point in their lives, because they suffered terribly during World War II. So later on, after the ceremony, I visit with John. I'm visiting with John as introduce myself and as an apprentice to the Nagasatos. And I said, John, how did you learn about Karatsu pottery? And he said, oh, there's this Benedictine nun up in St. Joe, Minnesota, who I took some major convocation or kind of seminar classes or seminar lectures from her about the ancient Karatsu ceramics. And he said, you mean Sister Johanna Becker? He says, yeah, that's it, Sister Johanna Becker. He says, this is my teacher as well. He says, really? He says, yes. So then we got to know each other, and I said, well, how did you get into the study of art and art history, especially ceramics? And he said, well, my dad was Secretary of State in the late 1920s under that administration. And I was a freshman in college at Harvard. And my dad calls me up and he says, John, have you got a summer job? And he says, no, Dad, I don't have a summer job yet. He says, how would you like to drive Red Cross truck? So John thought he was going to drive Red Cross truck in the States. Well, he got shipped to China through the Red Cross, and the Japanese were invading northern Manchuria. Mao Zedong was fighting the communists. Mao Zedong, the communist, was fighting Chiang Kai-shek, the Kuomintangs, and the nationalists. And what happened is that when you have this terrible division between people, the brutality is the poor will suffer. And so there was this, north of the Yellow River, this massive famine going on where that food was not coming down from the north because the Japanese were in the north, northern Manchuria, Manchuria. The communists and the Kuomintangs were fighting, and so no food was getting to this area. 4.5 million people starved to death in a matter of 6 months. Terrible famine, unrecorded in history. You don't read about it at all. And John was delivering food supplies from a port either in Shanghai or someplace, and driving with a convoy of American Red Cross trucks, delivering food to villages. So John was in this convoy truck delivering food to villages, and they had gotten into this village, and they unloaded all the food and everything like that, and he turned around and drove out, and he parked his truck outside the village just a couple hundred yards, waiting for the rest of the trucks because he's one of the first or second. And this elderly man appears out of nowhere and says, sir, my family is starving, and I want to know if you'd like to buy some pottery. It's been in our family for 13 generations. And John, he's going to wait an hour or so. Said, yeah, I'll take a look at it. So the guy waves, and 2 men come up with a wooden crate about this big. And they open up this wooden crate, and in it is Ming Dynasty white eggshell porcelains. And John looked at him and looked at these porcelains. And then the elderly man said in very good English to him, we knew the Pottery, the family who made these. They've been in our family and cared for 13 generations. And for $100 American, we'll sell these to you so I can buy food for my family. So John looked and he says, where's your family? He says, they're down behind those trees in this ditch over here. So he says, okay, I'll buy the pottery. He hands the man $100 American he had. It was all the money he had. He had more money than he said. He gave him $100 American. And then he says, get your whole family, and in the truck, I'll drive you to the port. So the old man waves, 9 other children and women, plus the 2 guys, about 13, 14 people. They get to the port. He pays for every one of their tickets, buys their tickets to get to Taiwan. If you go to the Freer Gallery in Washington, D.C. and look at those eggshell white porcelains, that's now part of our American heritage. He said at that very moment, he realized how important culture was beyond anything else. So then he changed his major to art history and became the director of the Freer Gallery in Washington, D.C. for 30 years, 40 years. He died in 1982. And he was a dear friend. We communicated, and unbelievable story. That's why generational transformation is important.